Welcome to the episode that Anthony Joshua most definitely did not want to be leaked, made public, examined, and mocked by millions of people who haven't worked out since 2017. Because today marks the start of training camp for a Jay's fight in the biggest circus punch fest of the decade against Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned boxer turned threat to professional heavyweights. And no matter what you think happened at camp, the truth makes the Kardashians look like a calm church choir. AJ walked into the room as if he had just realized that his pride was on life support, that rent was due, and that the boxing world would deport him if he lost to a guy whose fan base still uses the word bro. Trainers were whispering. The cameras were moving. Everyone in the building knew that this was more than just a training camp. It was a full-fledged attempt to save boxing from humiliation, from the first warm-up stretch to the final blow that shook the gym walls like a Marvel explosion. This episode shows every secret, every mistake, and every time AJ realized Jake Paul isn't just a fight, he's a potential career obituary. Put on your seatbelt. You are not supposed to view this all access. Violence is about to break out in this boxing room on the first day of training camp. There were no inspirational music or heroic remarks. When Anthony Joshua entered the gym, everyone in the room froze, as though he had just heard a prophecy that said, "Lose to Jake Paul and the boxing gods will revoke your membership." The trainers stopped chatting in the middle. The helpers held their breath. The gym bags also seemed nervous. Everyone was aware of what was at risk. Legacy, titles, and belts were no longer important. The intention was to prevent a YouTuber from totally changing the sport's history, rather of shaking hands. AJ's teachers welcomed him with fear disguised as motivation. They acted like generals welcoming their last warrior. Their look said, if Jake Paul lands one lucky punch, we're all changing careers, and AJ felt the same. His face exuded the subdued anxiety of a famous person who knows that everyone is waiting for him with popcorn, ready to meme him to death if he makes even one mistake. It was not your normal day. The season was one of survival, even before gloves were put on. AJ's warm-up seemed like a man torturing the treadmill for existing. Every step was motivated by the recollection of Jake Paul knocking out people whose names the internet still can't pronounce correctly. The trainers continued to mumble and sneak glimpses at AJ, like nervous parents watching their child retake the same exam he failed last summer. Power and speed were not as important to them as the shame tax that comes with losing to the Paul brothers. Additionally, as soon as AJ started stretching, a mashup of Jake Paul's exit music was played on the gym speakers. They said it was an accident. Bluetooth was accused of betrayal by another individual. But the universe was obviously trolling. AJ sent the speaker system a side eye that might have burned metal, but he remained unflinching. He appeared to be trying to get the shame out of his muscles by stretching harder before the media did it for him. As the workouts began, the atmosphere in the gym felt like fog in a scary movie. AJ was smashing pads with the rage of a man trying to kill every influencer who ever thought boxing was easy. Each strike echoed around the room with such force that the walls probably reconsidered their professional choices. Trainers nodded angrily, pretending nothing had changed, even though everyone knew they were coaching for their professional lives. It wasn't just a poor day, because a bad day at camp might lead to Olympic-level internet humiliation. AJ slipped a bit more slowly than he intended to during pad training. Normally, this would be acceptable. Today, everyone was as scared as if a fire alarm had suddenly gone off. Trainers came to a halt. The helpers froze. Someone in the rear let out a loud gasp. If he makes a mistake like that against Jake Paul, Twitter will declare the end of the heavyweight era before lunch. The fear lingered like a persistent echo bouncing off the gym mirrors. But AJ soon found his footing again. Halfway through camp, one of AJ's coaches pulled out a notepad filled with characteristics of Jake Paul. It seemed more like a survival guide. Headlined "How Not to Get Memmed" than a strategy book. And they studied Jake's footwork like scientists studying alien DNA. They studied his strikes like detectives viewing footage from a murder scene. Nothing was too insignificant to grow obsessed with, including every opinion, habit, and quirk. Because losing to Jake was not an option. Losing to Jake was a nightmare. AJ started shadowboxing next, moving like a man anxious to outbox his own mirror. His form was accurate, sharp, and under control. But the burden hung over him like a heavyweight cape. Every action had repercussions. Every feint appeared to convey a message. He was not getting ready for your average opponent. He was preparing for a man who had convinced the algorithm that he was unstoppable. If the algorithm does, millions of individuals will likewise believe it. As the door opened, several reporters entered the gym ready to document history or disaster. AJ looked at them, frightening them. "If any of you ask about Jake Paul's power, you're leaving with dental issues," he said. They watched in silence, documenting every strike as though it were evidence for a documentary about the day boxing almost fell apart. Their cameras buzzed frantically, capturing the excitement that filled the entire gym. Then there was fighting. That's when the truth became clear. AJ saw his sparring partner as a symbol for all influencers who had ever used gloves to gain influence rather than as a colleague. The blows were brutal. The footwork was superb. It exuded a ferocious intensity. But underneath it all was something deeper, a hint of nervousness masquerading as focus. More than just a man, Anthony Joshua was fighting. He was fighting a potential legacy disaster. The first round went too well, which made the trainers even more suspicious. Hushedly, they feverishly reminded AJ to be watchful, astute, and perfect. This was PR warfare, not simply a fight. And they were right to keep stating things like "this fight is different, no mistakes, and stay locked in." This was reputation insurance. This was the boxing community defending itself against a future when Jake Paul would be seen as the representative of the sport, in the middle of a sparring match. AJ landed a hit that sounded like thunder. His partner stumbled. The trainers cheered with genuine relief. But AJ didn't smile. He did not celebrate. He wasn't content. He seemed exhausted from stress, pressure, and the weight of keeping a YouTuber with unreasonable self-confidence from dominating a whole sport. It was obvious from his expression that this camp was not for training. It was an emotional struggle. After the final round, AJ leaned against the ropes, sweating profusely and gasping for air as though he had been defying gravity. His trainers walked around him, planning, assessing, and having brief conversations. They acted like scientists analyzing a nuclear bomb instead of preparing a heavyweight champion for a boxing match. AJ listened silently, taking in every word with the seriousness of someone who knows that everyone is staring at him through binoculars. Outside the ring, rumors were already making the rounds. Murmuring about the shape of a J, worries about Jake Paul's preparedness. Speculation about leaked footage from the camp. Commentators were predicting disaster. Fans expected dominance. Casual onlookers were making predictions about memes. Standing there, AJ came to the realization that his first day had not only been filmed, but had also been scrutinized, assessed, and inflated before he had even made it back home. That was the weight of the moment. That was the pressure. That was the first day of camp. Let's say that day one appears like this. It was inevitable that the rest of this camp would become even more wild, as was to be expected considering that nothing is private in 2025. The internet erupted like someone struck a beehive with a frying pan when clips from a Jay's first day appeared. The comment sections were used to build crime scenes. The boxing analysts started to sweat a lot. TikTok trainers who had never boxed before were evaluating AJ's footwork as though they were vying for an ESPN ringside spot. People paused the film pixel by frame, zoomed in on each punch, and acted as though discovering a small mistake would provide them a PhD in combat gossip studies. When one movie showed AJ slipping a little, the internet reacted as if he had fallen through the ropes and landed in another time zone. A stranger commented, "AJ, looking shaky already." Even though he was puffing from ascending stairs, Jake Paul's fans were the loudest. They overran every level like an army propelled by prime energy and delusion. For boxing purists, the idea that AJ looked lethargic, old, nervous, and not ready for a creator-built athlete was enough. What is a creator-built athlete? Hardly. But Jake's disciples accepted it as if it were written on stone tablets. Meanwhile, the aggressiveness of unpaid interns was used by AJ's fans in retaliation. They characterized him as alert, explosive, and terrifying. They posted old knockout videos as if nostalgia qualified as training camp footage. They said that Jake Paul was on the verge of ending his career and that the battle would be like a fridge chasing a toddler. Nobody was unbiased. The internet was split like a custody battle, with people shouting predictions at each other. Celebrities then started to comment, since many modern crises are sparked by celebrity criticism. Rumor pages went into overdrive when Floyd Mayweather uploaded a side-eye emoji without any explanation. Everyone thought Deontay Wilder was making fun of Jake when he laughed endlessly for 30 seconds on Instagram. Live without identifying himself. Eddie Hearn claimed that AJ appeared focused, but fans spent hours overanalyzing it because of the small delay before the term focused. Influencers took it a step farther. Jake Paul might expose the heavyweight system, one YouTuber said in a 40-minute study. Jake had the speed advantage, according to another influencer who had previously sparred for 12 seconds, before withdrawing in the middle of the round. The person was mercilessly mocked by Twitter in reaction, which resulted to his deactivation within an hour. Then there were thousands of memes. Edits of a J looking nervous. Jake's early joy was altered. Trainers gave AJ how not to lose to a YouTuber textbooks. In one meme, a terrified AJ was shown walking while a huge Jake Paul head chased him like a horror movie monster. In another, Jake was observed holding a pokeball that contained AJ on the internet. There is absolutely no shame, no breaks, and no mercy. The uproar escalated when it was revealed that Jake Paul's team had apparently seen the leaked footage beforehand. Commentary pages claimed that when Jake saw it, he smiled like a villain in a Marvel after-credits scene. The boxing world had a total meltdown after Jake liked a tweet that said, "Jake watching a J train like he's already buying victory champagne." After a while, Jake posted a video of himself smiling at the camera and saying, "He don't look ready." That one phrase had more of an impact than multiple championship bouts. AJ's fans became terrified. Jake's followers went into party mode. Neutral supporters opened popcorn. Even AJ's instructors were reportedly surprised because they didn't want Jake to feel confident enough to talk poorly right away. But subsequently, a second video showed AJ slamming the heavy bag with enough force to alter the Earth's spin. His appearance was sharp, hostile, and repulsive. The sound of punches was like thunderclaps. People said the bag looked terrified. When Twitter started calling it the funeral rehearsal, posts like "Jake Paul should reconsider his hobbies" and "This man, AJ, is punching like he's trying to delete the influencer industry" surfaced out of nowhere, quickly altering public view once more. But the chaos didn't end there. Consider articles with dramatic headlines such as "Is boxing ready for Jake Paul as a contender?" The article's Anthony Joshua's pride on the line. What day one means and Anthony Joshua's pride on the line stirred up controversy but had no real significance. The comment sections resembled political debates, but the politicians were shirtless men wearing boxing gloves. No one believed that Jake Paul could outsmart AJ emotionally. maybe physically, but never emotionally. Some commentators said that Ajay's first day seemed overly intense and emotional, as though he was practicing with anger rather than intelligence. And they warned that Jake Paul might use his feelings as a covert weapon. Within 4 minutes, fans tore the theory apart like coupons. The internet interpreted Mike Tyson's advice that AJ should stay disciplined as a warning not to swing carelessly. If Tyson is telling you to stay calm, you know chaos is coming, one commentator remarked. Even great boxers offered their opinions. During all of this chaos, Jake Paul posted another comment, saying, "We spar tomorrow." It wasn't clear what he meant, but it didn't matter. Fans saw it as a taunt. Boxing sites took a screenshot. Reporters talked about it, and Jake had mastered the art of saying very little while causing the biggest disturbance, which sent the internet into a frenzy. AJ saw the message as well, but he remained silent. However, the leaked video showed that he was moving swiftly, intently, and viciously while on the double-in bag. Every blow seemed to be a form of retaliation. Every action seemed to be in preparation for a demolition project. Trainers were yelling instructions with the urgency of the military. AJ seemed to be a man seeking retribution rather than just training. Online comments became twice as intense. AJ was called scary by some, possessed by others, and moving like someone told him Jake stole his Wi-Fi password in a widely circulated post. The exaggeration was ridiculous, but it didn't matter because it was trending. While Ajay's supporters said he looked like he was practicing for a TikTok dance, Jake's supporters said he looked sharp. Neutral fans noted the fight was starting to feel more like a chaos-sponsored crossover event than boxing. Jake posted a training video of himself, striking pads with quick combinations while grinning as if he had a secret. Celebrities pushed it further. Snoop Dogg said he wanted front row seats to the greatest unserious serious fight in history. Logan Paul prophesied that Jake would shock the world because, of course, he did family loyalty above rationality. Let's go, champ. Shannon Briggs shouted on Instagram simply because it's in the same realm as a fight announcement. The most unusual development occurred when a leaked video of Ajay's coach talking about Jake's flaws. Such his predictable overhand and his YouTube habits went viral, even though no one knew what YouTube habits meant. When someone tweeted, "Jake Paul got exposed for having YouTube habits," the algorithm threw confetti as the mayhem got out of hand. Everyone seemed to forget that this was only Ajay's first day of camp. The issue with modern boxing, on the other hand, is that half of the punches inside the ring are outweighed by the drama outside. But none of this was as good as what came next, because nobody was ready for the chaos, pressure, and stakes that would ensue from these leaks. Day 2 arrived, when the boxing world recognized that day 1 was just the warm dash-up. The boxing community woke up the morning after the leaked clips, acting as if someone had dropped global war news instead of training camp footage. Headlines everywhere shouted either dominance or disaster, depending on whose fanbase paid their Wi-Fi subscription on time. Half of the internet believes that AJ is ready to reclaim the heavyweight crown. The other half claimed that he looked like a nervous Uber driver trying to stop Jake Paul from rating his entire career 3 stars. Everyone could agree on one thing. The situation was getting far worse than a brawl. The hefty bags reconsidered their purpose in life. When they saw the serious look on AJ's face, it was palpable to all. The floor squeaked less. The trainer spoke more quietly, and the helpers walked faster, as if it didn't want to break whatever emotional wave AJ brought with him. Yesterday's chaos persisted like a rainstorm. AJ didn't seem embarrassed or shaken. He was so motivated that everyone secretly wished they wouldn't be selected as the next sparring partner. But the effects were already being felt. Reporters questioned Ajay's composure, arguing that it may be more difficult to fight a YouTuber than to face seasoned champions. Pundits debated if his pride was interfering with his ability to focus. Fans were always arguing and every tiny detail turned into a worldwide catastrophe. Even sports betting websites changed the odds as though the fight's fate were decided by a roulette wheel rather than punches. This was no longer boxing news. It was entertainment chaos on fire. Jake Paul was having a great time. He went online and smiled into the camera like a villain who had just gotten the rewrite of the screenplay he wanted. His insults that AJ looked overworked, underconfident, and not ready for the problem child nearly caused boxing purists to give up. As they watched Jake's films, their disdain, rage, and curiosity kept the algorithm overflowing. Jake's confidence was fuel that he was dumping everywhere. Not a strategy. AJ's silence in the interim simply served to heighten the tension. Silence is rarely peaceful in combat sports. Silence creates pressure. Silence implies plotting. A silent man is either refining his weaponry or reevaluating every decision he has. Made since 2016, the suspense of not knowing which version of AJ was living in drove fans crazy. They needed answers. They needed an explanation. They looked for proof that AJ wasn't crumbling under the pressure of a meme-driven opponent. That disclosure happened during a private meeting that was not supposed to be made public, but it did. In a matter of minutes, a little video of AJ destroying a sparring partner with incredibly violent combos went viral. Some said that AJ was behaving as if he wanted to remove the viewpoints seen online. Trainers were practically in prayer against the backdrop. Everyone who was watching could see that AJ was evolving rather than crumbling. People's opinions were instantly altered by the video. Fans shouted that the heavyweight monster had returned. It was accepted by critics that AJ seemed risky. Even Jake Paul's admirers fell silent for a short while, a rare miracle. But the tranquility was fleeting. Jake responded by posting a video of himself working hard, smiling confidently, and acting as though everything AJ did was ordinary and unremarkable. And for some reason, that smile revived the chaos. Everyone knew Jake would not compromise. If anything, he was getting more aggressive. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in AJ's camp grew darker. Coaches began to work harder since they knew that everyone was watching every drop of sweat that dripped from AJ's brow. They weren't only getting him ready to win. He was undergoing training to prevent disgrace that would destroy the heavyweight chronology in its whole. The force of AJ's strikes increased. He walked more quickly. His focus became less intense. He pretended to have accepted the challenge, but he didn't want to deal with the consequences of failing. Unexpected places outside the gym were being affected by the ripple effect.